Hey guys, welcome back. This is going to be the fifth installment of the Web Security Academy video series of walkthroughs. Today we'll be solving the SQL injection union attack lab. This one's going to be retrieving data from other tables. This lab specifically builds upon two skills that were learned in the previous two videos, which is enumerating column data types and then also enumerating the number of columns within a backend query. And if you're unfamiliar with either of those two concepts, I would encourage you to go back and check those out before we start. Okay, so to go ahead and get started with this lab, what we're going to do, we're going to load up the lab, which I have right here. And again, this is going to be a SQL injection in the categories parameter. So we'll just pick any of these here. I'm going to click on accessories, and we are going to Command R to send that to repeater, Control R if you are on Windows, and turn the intercept off to forward that through. Now we're going to go over to the repeater, and we are going to first enumerate the number of columns. So to do that, what we're going to do, we're going to do union plus select, if I could spell select correctly. And then we're going to do the same tactic that we learned in the last one to get the number of columns. So it looks like there's not one, and let's try two. Okay, so now that we know that there's two columns, we want to check which one or both return a string. So let's just call this string 1, send. All right, so we know that the first index does. Let's see if we can get the second index. And we'll send this too. Okay, so now we know that both of these for sure return strings, or they hold string data types. This lab, if you check out the lab description, operates under a couple of assumptions. It is telling us that there's a table on the back end called users. And within that table, there's two columns called username and password. Now, this isn't necessarily realistic. We know that those are there. So what we can do then is retrieve data from other tables because we know that this query supports two strings, and we want to retrieve the username and password of those data points within that table that's not being queried within this particular SQL query. So to do that, we're going to use the same union select attack. And we know that we can use two of those spots, which is right where string 1 and string 2 was 1 second ago. So what we can do is we can union select. We know it told us that there's both a username and there is a password. So what we're going to do is do username space, or sorry, we're going to do username space password, except for from this time, we want to select from a different table. So that table was called users. And then we'll use that same double hyphen technique to comment out the rest of the backend query. So what's going on here? As you had just seen, string 1 and string 2, which we just enumerated a second ago, were the two items that are being queried by the categories parameter. However, we know that there's both a username and password column in a different table called users. Users is what being queried by this category parameter. However, if we know of the two other column names and the other table name, we can take username and password from that table and kind of inject them into this query and then get it to leak information. So what we'll go ahead and do is we'll send this through, and I'm going to right click and do show response in browser, copy, paste this, show response, and then what you'll see here is this is a dump of all the username and passwords. So the goal of this lab was to get the administrator's password, and that's exactly what we've done here. So now if we go ahead and we copy the administrator password and head over to my account, we'll go to username, enter administrator, and then paste the password that just leaked. And as it loads up here, you'll see that we solved the lab and we're logged in as the administrator. So this is just a cool example of some things that you might be able to do if you have a little extra knowledge with a SQL injection. And from this point forward, we're going to go about how you might find some of that information that might lead you to know that there's columns named that and there's other tables named that. And we'll go over that in future videos. But that is it for today. Thank you guys, and I appreciate you